Coming up today, with the Korea-Japan summit just a few days away, President Park Geun-hye tells Tokyo she wants the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women resolved before the year is out. More mixed economic news for Korea. The nation's industrial production jumps in September, but local manufacturers remain pessimistic about business conditions as we head into November. Plus, the UN denounces the North Korean leadership for earning a fortune on the back of forced labor overseas. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 30th of October. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this afternoon, President Park Geun-hye has reiterated calls for Japan to resolve the issue of its wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. She has told Japanese media outlets that she wants the issue resolved before the end of the year. The president's remarks come a matter of days ahead of her first one-on-one summit with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
President Park wants the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women resolved by the end of this year. That's what she told Japanese dailies, the Asahi Shimbun and the Mainichi Shimbun, in a written interview. It's the first time the president has set a deadline on the issue, which has become the thorniest subject between the two neighbors. More than 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese military before and during World War II. Time is running out for the elderly victims, as only 47 remain in Korea. President Park said it's important for the Japanese government to swiftly come up with measures acceptable to the victims, and that such measures will be proposed at the upcoming summit. She added that the past cannot be resolved by denial and expressed hope it will no longer stand in the way of their bilateral relations. Addressing Japan's newly acquired right to collective self-defense, President Park urged Tokyo to maintain transparent defense policies. There are concerns Japan's military could enter the Korean peninsula even without Seoul's consent in the event of a contingency with North Korea. She also touched upon Seoul's interest in joining the 12-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, which includes Japan and the United States. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea appears to be digging a new tunnel at its main nuclear test site, leading to speculation Pyongyang might be preparing for a fourth nuclear test. Multiple government sources in Seoul say active movements of people and vehicles have been spotted at a previously unknown area of the Punggye-ri test site. They say the activity is likely linked to the construction of a new tunnel. So far, North Korea has carried out 3 nuclear tests, one near Punggye-ri's east tunnel portal and 2 near the west portal. However, many North Korea experts say that rather than prepping for a test, Pyongyang is likely aiming to get more of the international spotlight ahead of the upcoming summit between South Korea, China and Japan. South Korea has stated that there will be no talks on the possible deployment of a U.S. missile defense system called Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, during next week's defense talks with the United States. Now, THAAD is back in the headlines after a Lockheed Martin official said the two allies had already started discussions about deploying the system to South Korea. It's a claim Seoul vehemently denies. Connie Kim reports.
South Korea has rejected a Lockheed Martin official's claims that Seoul and Washington are already in talks about deploying the defense firm's THAAD system to the Korean peninsula. A government official said Friday that the U.S. has not requested talks with South Korea on the issue. The rebuttal comes after a senior official from Lockheed Martin said talks between South Korea and the United States had begun about the possible deployment.
The THAAD system is the subject of a policy discussion between the United States and the Republic of South Korea. Those policy discussions are ongoing now. I know they're having both informal and formal discussions on the policy side.
He also claimed it would be rational for a country like South Korea to have a multi-layered anti-ballistic missile defense system like THAAD. Talks of the potential deployment remains a highly controversial issue inside and outside of South Korea. The U.S. says it could better defend South Korea against North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear programs. China and Russia have both expressed strong opposition. They say it would threaten their national security and destabilize the region. The THAAD claims come as the defense chiefs of South Korea and the United States are set to hold their annual security talks in Seoul on Monday. South Korea's defense ministry says THAAD will not be on the agenda. The Pentagon declined to comment on whether THAAD will be discussed. It did, however, reject the Lockheed Martin officials' claims that the two allies were already holding talks on the system's deployment to the Korean peninsula. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, it has emerged that U.S. fighter jets were scrambled on Tuesday after 2 Russian bombers were detected near a U.S. aircraft carrier in international waters off the Korean peninsula. The White House said Thursday local time that 4 U.S. fighter jets escorted the Russian bombers away from the USS Ronald Reagan, which was in the East Sea between Korea and Japan at the time. The incident comes amid heightened tensions surrounding Russia's intervention in Syria and its military annexation of Crimea last year. However, the White House says the encounter did not result in a significant confrontation. The National Assembly's Defence Committee is meeting to decide whether to sign off on a $58 million budget request for South Korea's fighter jet development program. The goal of the Korean Fighter Experimental Project, or KFX, is to produce 120 indigenous combat jets by the year 2025. The project came under fire after the US decided not to transfer technologies key to the fighter jet's development back in April, information the South Korean government didn't reveal to the public until recently. If the budget request is approved by lawmakers today, it will be put up for a vote at a plenary session. Now, in economic news, Korea's industrial output picked up last month, raising hope the economy is on the recovery track. However, local manufacturers remain unconvinced, expressing pessimism about business conditions in the month to come. Shin Se-min reports.
Korea's industrial output expanded 1.9% on month in September, the fastest pace in 3 months, contributing to the nation's ongoing economic recovery. Statistics Korea said Friday that strong demand for semiconductors and automobiles were responsible for the increase. Production in the mining, manufacturing, gas, and electricity industries grew nearly 2% on month, a huge leap from a mere 0.2 gain in August. The service sector, a major driver of the domestic economy, also grew 1.2% from the month before, an increase of over 3.5% compared to the same period last year. The agency said the increased output in the retail sector, boosted by the Chuseok holiday in September, contributed to the monthly gain in services. Across industries, including both the service and construction sectors, production expanded 2.4% on month, rising over 4% from a year earlier. But despite the positive data, the Bank of Korea's monthly manufacturing sentiment survey showed little change in manufacturing businesses, as the majority remained pessimistic about the business conditions in November. The business survey index for manufacturers remained at 70, unchanged from the previous month, amid companies' growing expectations that export conditions will improve. Non-manufacturing firms have also been consistent since October, posting a figure of 73 for November. The reading is still below the 100 mark, indicating that pessimists outnumber optimists. The Bank of Korea attributed the gloomy outlook to continued uncertainty about economic conditions weighing on the country's manufacturers. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Volkswagen has issued recall notices for Euro 5 vehicles sold here in Korea. According to industry sources, Audi Volkswagen Korea has been sending official apology and recall notification letters to owners of affected vehicles since last week. The local branch of the German car maker is expected to recall over 125,000 units of 28 different Volkswagen and Audi models fitted with EA 189 engines. Meanwhile, owners of Euro 5 vehicles with EA 288 engines were notified that their vehicles do not contain the cheating software and are not subject to the recall. Although an exact date has yet to be finalized, Volkswagen is expected to begin recalling those affected vehicles from January next year. China has decided to end its decades-old one-child policy, allowing all couples to have 2 kids. But many have doubts whether it will help China's economy, as it will take years before it boosts the workforce, and many young couples are choosing to only have 1 child anyway. Kim Min-ji reports.
China is doing away with its infamous one-child policy, allowing all couples to have 2 children, as it hopes to give its ailing economy a boost. The world's second biggest economy is on its way of posting its worst growth in 25 years. China's family planning policy was enacted in 1979 to address concerns about whether the economy could support rapid population growth. Down the line, this led to a shrinking workforce due to low birth rates and an aging population, currently with about 30% of China's population over the age of 50.
Actually, we need more young people, newborn babies, to improve the demographic structure. I think looking forward, the whole family planning policy will be lifted.
However, experts question whether the new policy will have a positive impact on the economy.
They can't just say, okay, you can have another one, and that's that, and people will. You've got to see if they're going to increase the quality of air, food safety. Raising a child in China is a very worrying proposition in today.
Furthermore, it will take years for babies to grow to join the workforce.
Babies take a while to grow up to become workers. You're talking 20-year horizon. So, and that's assuming that people will take it up, that there's rest in that assumption.
It remains to be seen whether the effects of the policy will kick in down the road, as many couples who were allowed to have another child under eased regulations in 2013 decided to stick with 1 child, citing the high cost of bringing up children. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, the United Nations has released a scathing report describing how the regime makes vast sums of money off the blood, sweat and tears of tens of thousands of North Koreans forced to work for a pittance overseas. Son Jung-in has more.
The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea, Marzuki Darusman, says more than 50,000 North Korean workers are working as modern-day slaves abroad to prop up the country's flagging economy with much-needed foreign currency. The workers are sent mainly to China and Russia, but also countries in Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia to work in the construction, mining, logging, and textile industries. Darusman described the appalling conditions the North Koreans have to work under. Not only they are underfed, they're also forced to work up to 20 hours almost every day for $150 a month or less. The North Korean regime is making up to $2.3 billion a year from their confiscated salaries. It provides the elite in Pyongyang with foreign currency that they wouldn't be able to get otherwise due to international sanctions that restrict North Korea's financial activities. The report comes as the international community is pushing for a renewed UN resolution that calls for tougher sanctions against the regime. According to sources at the UN, Japan and the European Union submitted a joint resolution to the UN General Assembly's Third Committee with the help of other interested parties, including South Korea and the US. The resolution is reported to be similar to one drafted last year, which urged the Security Council to refer the North Korean leadership to the International Criminal Court to face justice for human rights abuses. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
North Korea will hold a Workers' Party Congress next year for the first time in 36 years. Pyongyang's state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Friday that the Congress will convene in May 2016 to meet growing demands for a, quote, revolutionary development in building a strong socialist state, end quote. Experts believe North Korea is aiming to officially declare the start of the Kim Jong-un era and strengthen his grip on the military through the Congress. The previous Congress was held in 1980 to confirm Kim Jong-il's succession as the leader of the North Korean regime. Republican Paul Ryan has been voted in as the next Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. The congressman from Wisconsin received 236 of the 247 Republican votes to succeed John Boehner. Ryan urged Republicans and Democrats to come together for the sake of the nation. He said the House is broken and that its members were not solving problems but adding to them. At just 45 years old, Ryan becomes the youngest Speaker of the House in nearly 150 years. I, Seoul, you. That's the new slogan selected by the Seoul Metropolitan Government to replace its current slogan, Hi Seoul. Despite the city government's attempt to revamp its brand image, the new slogan is facing mounting criticism and ridicule. Before the vote on three possible options, many raised concerns that I, Seoul, you is Konglish and that it doesn't make much sense in English. And since the announcement on Wednesday, the new slogan has drawn mockery on social media, with users posting parodies online. Earlier this week, the panel that headed the project said people needed to look at it outside of English grammar rules, adding that the new slogan will grow on the public over time. Well, those are the stories we have for you on this Friday afternoon here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.